this one patient talks this doctor into doing this, okay? Doing the, so the doctor finally does this excisional biopsy and finds clear margins.
What does that mean?
However, there was cancer when they took the tumor, the tumor, and chopped it up on the laboratory bench. They found cancer, and he said, well, there's a 20-30% chance that it went to your left axilla, left under armpit. So we need to take all those nodes out. Well, doctor, wait a minute. Let me think about it. Let me pray about it. Okay, so she calls me up, and I said, why don't you do a PET scan, which is you inject radioactive sugar, and cancer loves sugar, so it'll go to the, quotes, hot spots. So that was negative. So the patient says, no, I don't want to take I'm not going to have any surgery. So after a year and a half, the patient went back to the doctor. Evaluation was negative. So how many times does this, how many spreads of cancer, how many node dissections or removals can you prevent by just doing this way, doing the procedure the way I just delineated? And this is another thing that I'm just getting into all these things that I get into and get in trouble.
Well, I've actually been fired by 2 doctors for requesting that they look at new protocols, new methods, new knowledge that have been coming in over the years, and gave them ample time to review things. And when there was resistance and unwillingness to look, an unwillingness to get up to speed about the new things that are going on or information that has changed, and I realized it was going to impact my health, I had to confront them. And even though it was done in a nice way, it was done, and the fact that it was done, these doctors said, I don't want you to be my patient anymore. My patients don't talk to me like this. And I said, most of your patients aren't involved in investigative research and don't know what's available to them in the world.
Another big issue lately is mammograms, okay? Well, there's studies now coming out. They do thousands of mammograms. Let's describe what happens. They crunch the breast, and then they radiate it, okay?
Right.
Now, a study came out a couple years ago that the MRI, magnetic resonance imaging, far outperforms mammography, but it's $2,000. So why did they put this study into the New England Journal of Medicine, which is the most prestigious journal in the world? Then they won't do the test because it's too expensive. So they're pushing the same old radioactive junk mammogram, okay, that's old. It's been around like 50 years. No change.
I did an interview with Dr. Bill Coburn, who's pretty high up in the thermogram arena.
Oh, good.
And I have thermograms done by him where they...
Right, so there's up to... You mean Cockburn?
Yes.
Okay, so there's up to a 20% increase in cancer in some studies of thousands of patients of people who have mammograms.
But that information is not really widely known. It's fascinating.
Right.
And yet, thermograms have been around for almost 30 years.
So has ultrasounds. Okay. They've been around a long time, too.
So what do the ultrasounds have to do with mammograms or thermograms? Talk about it.
It's when they find a mammogram is inconclusive, then they'll do an ultrasound.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
How long has that been going on?
Well, that's been going on for years and years. And then that'll give them a better idea. But basically the mammogram, because you're adding radiation to a very sensitive tissue, okay, should be banned. That's my opinion and the opinion of a lot of other people. Which leads us to the next subject, which is very related, and that's depleted uranium.
Talk about it. How does it relate?
Well, it's another radiation thing. Okay, it seems like everything we do, even like we can even relate it to the scans. They now want to scan us, full body scans, because of this duped situation. Meaning this guy, I believe, was a dupe, and there's a lot of data on Infowars and other places that this so-called underpants bomber right? And they had previously bought these scanners a long time ago. Again, these are ionizing radiation.
I don't understand how that could even be legal, let alone constitutional. Seriously.
There you go. It shouldn't be. But I mean, I certainly wouldn't do anything if they had to do a body search for me. Fine, I'll go through a body search, but I'm not going to subject myself to a total body ionizing radiation scan.
What is an ionizing radiation scan?
Well, that's what they are. These scans, these total body scans that they're doing on people to see basically a nude body, are ionizing radiation.
But what is that? What does ionizing mean?
You have an ion. Ion, you've heard of negative and positive ions,
yes.
Right? Well, you're actually affecting the DNA. See? And ionizing radiation mean you're getting ions, okay? Well, there's negative ions and positive ions, but I don't want to get into this, except that you're affecting your DNA every time you get one of these radiation scans, okay? That's enough for this conversation.
Okay, so what about the depleted uranium? Talk about that.
So the depleted uranium, okay, so why is that such an issue? Because they're using them in all the wars. What do I mean, all the wars? Iraq War, Bosnia War, Afghan War. They're using depleted uranium. Now, the problem with that word, that phrase, is it's not that depleted. You start with 100% uranium. Okay, use it in a radioactive material. It's used in a nuclear reactor, and then what remains is called depleted uranium. It's 70% the potency of the original uranium. It's used because it's 7 times the density of lead. It's used as a hardener in shells and ordnance to blow up walls and tanks and so forth in wars, but it powderizes, blows up a tank, spreads all over, and that gets into what I have to find, or maybe call Dr. Garth Nicholson and get the interview we had. We did an interview during Gulf War I, with one of the Gulf War victims, i.e. a GI, okay? So a Gulf War veteran. And he was loaded with uranium. He couldn't think straight, was paranoid. He had 40 tumors. He had severe clotting. He had all kinds of diarrhea. He had all kinds of symptoms related to the Gulf War and chronic fatigue, that kind of thing. So we want to get this out that, like even 8 months ago, a fellow comes in and says, what's the matter? I'm dizzy and other complaints. Okay. So I asked him, I said, well, have you been exposed to depleted uranium? He said, how did you know? I said, well, you were in the war and you don't feel good, and that's logical that I would ask that question because I know about it. He says, well, they told me to go out into this burned-out vehicle, and they told me to watch for the enemy from the burned-out vehicle, but don't stay there very long. And he said, well, I said to them, why shouldn't I stay there very long in the burned-out vehicle to see where the enemy's going? And they said, because it's loaded with uranium.
Oh, my God.
And so this is just like 8-9 months ago. So this is still ongoing, this situation. But it's not a mainstream media subject. So we're trying to get... Now, here's what happens. Like at Walter Reed Hospital, the congressmen and the press, right? They'll visit the amputee ward, won't they?
That's what I've heard of.
Right, but they won't visit the cancer wards. Aha! Because they don't want it to become a mainstream media topic that we're causing cancer in our Gulf War veterans with depleted uranium, okay, being a big cause of it. So you can go to rinse.com, of course, and you can scroll to your left and go to depleted uranium. You read a lot of nice articles there on depleted uranium.
There's also a documentary called Beyond Treason that I saw part of. I didn't see the whole thing. That was on what the soldiers go through and the levels of uranium that are in the air.
Yes.
And they have no clue. No clue.
So some of the data is that since 2006, there's 6 times the amount of lung cancer in the United States than there was prior.
Since 2006?
Yes.
6 times the amount of cancer?
Of lung cancer in the United States than there was prior to all this depleted uranium spread.
Well, the
There's
lung
some-
cancer could come from everything from chemtrails